theyeshiva.net.
Okay, we're holding Likkutei Torah, Parshas Chukas, page 112, on the bottom of column 1. The line starts Olam Haza, like 6-7 lines from the bottom. Page 112, on top it says Chukas. It's the middle of Perek Beis of this Maimer. Okay, today's class is dedicated by Nura Zarapur, in loving memory of her parents, Gitti and Nuri Bakchi, of blessed memory, Tehei Nishmasam Tzura B'Tzur HaChayim. May their memory be a source of inspiration and blessing to you and the whole family and all of the Jewish people. Thank you. Okay, let me just summarize what we learned in last year, which was Thursday Parshas Chukas. The Baal HaTanya is explaining one of the symbolisms, one of the deeper meanings of burning the red cow, the Parah Aduma, as a source of cleansing. So he goes into a whole discussion about what burning is, reducing it to ashes, and he explains that in everything in the world there's a chaimer and there's a tzura. Chaimer is the raw reality of it, and the tzura is the form it takes on. And as he puts it, in everything you have these two concepts. Just like physically, you have the chaimer of something, you have the raw material of it. And then you have the tzura, the different forms it's sculptured into. And that becomes part of it, obviously. And it may even be hard to undo. But it's not essential to the chaimer. It's something additional to the chaimer. The chaimer is there the pre-tzura, and then the tzura takes on, the chaimer takes on a certain tzura. So in everything in the world you have that. And an example he gave is, you have the body of an animal or the body of a person. It says by Adam Rishon, Afar Atav, El Afar Tashuv. That you're Afar, you're earth, you're dust, and you're going to go back to Afar. But the body is not only Afar, right? Like the Rambam says, the body, there's the Eish, and there's the Ruach, and there's the Mayim. The body is not just Afar. It goes back to Afar. But ultimately, a body is made up of Eish, Ruach, Mayim. And when something gets burnt, the Eish and the Ruach and the Mayim, the fire and the air and the water dissipate, and what remains is the Afar or the Efer, the ashes that represents like the chaimer of it, the raw chaimer of it. In every single thing in the world, you always have to be able to distinguish between the chaimer of it and the tzura of it. It's hard to distinguish between the two because the tzura becomes ingrained in the chaimer, so it looks like it's the same thing. But even a table or a menorah, whatever it is, it turned into that tzura. And the tzura could very often also be undone and go back to the chaimer. On a deeper level or more abstract level, we explain, chaimer and tzura is not just a physical thing. Chaimer and tzura represents, the tzura is the interpretation we give to the chaimer. Just like tzura literally is. The fact that this is a table and I know that I could put a sefer on it or put my hands on it or whatever I'm doing on it, that's an interpretation. When it was a branch, you couldn't put something on it. Same is true with a chair. So the tzura gives a certain context and it gives a certain pirush, a certain commentary to the chaimer. It puts it into a certain framework. And the harnesses it in a certain way that now it could be used in a certain way and becomes part of a story. In every single thing you have the raw fact, the raw reality, and then you have the story you give to it, the tzura, the form you give to it. Somebody may say something to you. Those words are just the words. That's the chaimer. But the tzura is the meaning I may attribute to it, the context in which I may put it. That may not have to do with the chaimer. Two people can hear the same exact words, but their reactions are from one extreme to another extreme. Why? This doesn't have to do with the words themselves. It has to do with the tzura these words take on. And that has to do with me much more than with the words themselves. What did I hear in these words? What's the story behind these words? What do these words represent? Right? That's already a whole other element that I add on to the thing itself. Woe is the person who can't distinguish between the two, because then there's no growth. Everything is fixed and paralyzed. Somebody does something, somebody says something. Two people could look at the same person. For one person, they just see chaimer. The other person, it comes with a whole package. That's part of the tzura. So chaimer and tzura means a lot of things. It just depends on the context. But the nekuda is, chaimer is the raw material, and then tzura is the form it takes on. The Rambam says in Likkutei, the Hatorah, it also represents guf and neshama. Right? Chaimer is the raw material of something, and tzura is the life of it, the inner consciousness of it. That can also be a translation of chaimer and tzura. It has a lot of different meanings, variations, depends on the context of what you're talking about. In other words, the words chaimer and tzura themselves also have a chaimer and tzura. The words chaimer and tzura themselves also have a chaimer and tzura. So what's the connection here? So the Palatanya says that it says in Zoya that the para, the red cow, the para, the kabilas min smala, it receives its energy from tzad hasmoil, from the left side. That's what it says in Zoya. What does it mean from the left side? In the Merkava, the vision of Yecheskel, he saw the face of the lion on the right and the face of the ox. In the beginning of the Sefer Yecheskel, known as Maaseh Merkava, we read it in the Hatorah of Shavuos. It's considered one of the great mysteries of Tanakh. The Mishnah says, "Ein darshan b'Maaseh Merkava." You have to be careful of learning Maaseh Merkava. So Maaseh Merkava is the Merkava, the wagon or the chariot that Yecheskel Hanavi saw carrying the Kisei HaKavod. The Kisei HaKavod, the throne, was on this Merkava, on this chariot, and the chariot is basically represented by the face of a lion on the right and the face of an ox on the left. In the middle, he sees the face of an eagle and the face of a person. So the lashon in Kabbalah is that the para, which the cow comes from, that a cow is the female of a shur, of an ox, is the kavilas min smaller, receives from the left side. The Balatanya says, what does that mean? The Gemara says in Saita, Yamin Mekarevis, La'olam Tei, Yamin Mekarevis, a small doicha. The right should be the arm, the strong arm with which you embrace, you bring close. And the left arm or the left hand should be the one which with you small doicha, you reject, you push away. So he said that in Kavayachal B'Hashem also, there's a hashpah, there's a flow that comes from Yamin, there's a hashpah that comes from Smile, from the right and from the left. It's also known as Chesed or Gvura. Chesed is considered the right, it says in Zoya, and Gvura is considered the left. What does it mean, a hashpah that comes from the left? Not only say that with the left you push away, like I don't want to have to do with you. It means there's a hashpah, there's a giving that comes from the left. And that is, when you give from the right, it represents a giving in which you're giving yourself. I want to give myself because I can't give completely myself, so I give you something that represents me, so we always stay connected. Like it says in Medrash, that when Hashem gave the Jewish people the Torah, He said, "Oisi atam loichem." I'm giving you me. V'yikchu li truma. So the Zohar says, "V'yikchu li truma." Truma is Torah. Truma is Torah mem. The Torah was given in 40 days. So He says, "V'yikchu li truma." You're taking me through the truma. V'yikchu li. I'm giving you me. In a relationship, I'm giving you something, and through this you'll have me. There's another type of hashpah. Like he gives an example when somebody gives something to somebody that he's not interested in giving it. So command the shadi basa kasva, you throw it over your shoulders. It's even hard for you to see them because of the negativity between you. Say somebody has an enemy and they have to give them, I don't know, severance pay or a gift or whatever it is. So you throw it over your shoulders. In other words, you're giving that instead of you. Like, don't, stop bothering me. Here, take it and leave me alone. That's called a hashpah from tzad hasma. The hashpah itself is a b'chinas d'chiyah. The giving itself is a form of rejection. It's not just I'm rejecting you before the giving, after the giving. The giving itself is a form of rejection. It's like when you're giving somebody a gift, but do me a favor, leave me alone. So the gift is instead of me, in replacement of me. What's the difference between Kedusha and Klippa? In Kedusha, the definition of Kedusha is that every element that comes from Hashem, it's connected to the source. So essentially you're getting the source from it. What's the so that's called a hashpah of yamin. What's the definition of klippa? It's a cover, a shell, a husk. In other words, it doesn't experience itself as davuk, as one with Ein Sof, with infinity. It experiences itself as something separate, something disconnected. That's why it's called klippa. That's why it's called chitzonim, because it basically allows the chitzonius to take over the external facade and cover up and shell and husk to dominate. So over there, the energy all comes from Hashem, because nothing lives without the kedusha that's inside of it. If there was no kedusha, if there was no divinity vibrating through it, it wouldn't be able to exist. But what's the nature of its existence? The nature of its existence is it considers itself separate. It considers itself detached. It considers itself lonely. Loneliness is because it doesn't experience itself as a derivative of the consciousness of Ein Sof. And that's the difference. Kedusha means anything which is a direct manifestation of the oneness of infinity, Hashem Echad. And Klippa means there's a shell, there's a husk that covers up that relationship, that connection. Yeah.
Well, is shore representing that the shore representing that Klippa?
Oh, so when we say Pnei Shor Mehasmoil from the left, it represents.
Why shore?
So that's what he started to explain. That this is the example. It says that Parah, the Gemara says that the lion is the king of the chayas, all the undomesticated animals in the jungle, or in the forests, in the wild. The king is considered the aryeh, and the shor, the ox, or the cow, is considered the king of all the behemoths. Behemoths are the more domesticated animals, more docile animals. So the shor is the king of the behemoths, and the eagle, Nesher, is the king of the birds. So that's why it says in Kabbalah and Chassidus that the Pnei Shor is the spiritual source for all the behemoths. And Pnei Aryeh is the spiritual source for all the chayas. And Pnei Nesher is the spiritual source for all the oifas. So this includes also the Nefesh HaBahamis in a person. And that's the main discussion. The Nefesh HaBahamis in a person is the behemoth, the animal consciousness in the human being. The animal consciousness of the human being is a pchin of a behemoth. We call it Nefesh HaBahamis versus Nefesh HaLikis, which is the divine consciousness of a human being. What's the definition of the animal consciousness in a human being? It's not a bad consciousness. Animals are not bad, they're not evil. It has one focus, and that is survival. That's what an animal wants. It looks for food, it looks for comfort, it wants to survive. That's what an animal is preoccupied with. That's their entire being. Sometimes people are also preoccupied with that because we have a nefesh habahamis. We need to survive. Survival is that's the base. Yeah. In today in brain science, neuroscience, you know that the stem of the brain is called the amygdala. They sometimes call it the reptilian brain. Why the reptilian brain? Because it has commonalities with a reptile. A reptile doesn't have emotions, at least doesn't show emotions. If you look at a lizard or a crocodile or an alligator, but one thing it knows how to survive. And it's brilliant at survival. I went once, Chalamayid, I went with one of my children, we went to see, there's a whole like alligator zoo. And you can even hold an alligator, a baby alligator, not a big one. You don't want to hold a big one. But it was a small one. And it was very interesting. Like the whole world of alligators, hundreds or thousands of alligators. It's like a whole alligator forest. And so there's a huge, those big alligators. It was very, very long. And it positioned itself in a certain place. And it was a strange place. So I asked the fellow, why did this alligator position itself there? So he says, because there's a female far away that can notice him. And he just wants to be noticed so that I could, help him for his future shidduchim. It was just fascinating. You're looking at an alligator. And it was a very tough position. It was in the sun. It was hot too. But he knew he has to position himself there. If he wants a new generation, Medav sich ausfeinen for the Shadchan, for the Kala, for the Shviger. So the alligator was busy grooming himself. It was just very fascinating to see. We often don't notice these things. Today, more you learn about animals, even insects, reptiles. This is essential to how Hashem made it. And everyone has the skills and the resources to know exactly what to do in order to feed, in order to protect themselves, in order to protect their young, in order to make sure you propagate. Then you have a higher level of the brain. They call it the limbic brain, the emotional brain, right? That's like the chimpanzee's brain. Over there's already much more personality. It's not just survival. There's a lot of emotions, a lot of emotions. Then there's the human part of the brain. They call it the prefrontal cortex. That grows much, much later. It grows much later, and it takes years to develop till the middle of the 20s. The prefrontal cortex, that's already the ability of a human being. Pros and cons, long-term vision, morality questions, what's right, what's wrong, delaying gratification. It's a whole different skill set in the brain. It's called nefesh hasichlis. Nefesh hasichlis.
Morality, personal morality.
Nefesh hasichlis already. Yeah. So in Tanya it says you have the nefesh hachiyunis, nefesh habahamis, nefesh hasichlis. So today in neuroscience you could see there's different parts of the brain. What's the nekud of a behemoth? But the nekud of a behemoth is survival. Survival is not a bad thing. Survival is a good thing. In fact, survival is a mitzvah. The Gemara says, how do you learn out that all the mitzvahs, most mitzvahs are doicha? A pikuach nefesh is doicha most of the mitzvahs, because one of the limudim in Maseches Yomos it says, ha-mitzvahs asher yasa oisam ha'adam v'chai behem v'lo sheyamos behem. The mitzvahs were given to live through them, not to die through them. When the Rebbeinu Shalom gave mitzvahs, he said, I gave these mitzvahs, you should live through these mitzvahs, not die through these mitzvahs. Right? It's a simple limud, but it's not such a simple limud. If it's bringing sheshayamos behem, something is off with the mitzvahs. It's supposed to be v'chai behem. It's also on a ruchnisdika level. The mitzvahs are supposed to create chayas, not misa, not death. V'chai behem, v'lo shalom. I want you to live, I don't want you to die. If the mitzvahs are causing the opposite, you have to know which mitzvahs you're doing. Is it God's mitzvahs? Is it maybe somebody else's mitzvahs? The Rambam says in Hilchos Chanukah, Kol HaTorah nitna lasses shalom ba'olam. The whole Torah was given in order to create harmony, to create peace in the world, in a person's world and in the world around. So if you see Torah is doing the opposite, you have to know which Torah. Which Torah are you teaching? Which Torah is being transmitted? If it's the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu gave at Har Sinai, it's supposed to be lasses shalom ba'olam. Creates more peace. It creates more harmony. Samachayim, yeah. Samachayim, yeah. Elixir of life. Mia Isha Chafetz Chayim, yeah. There's a story in the Medrash about it. So somebody was running around. But so the Nekuda is survival is a very good thing. Thank God it's a good thing, right? And it's the basis. The Nefesh HaBahamis, Ki Nefesh HaBasa B'dami, that's the basis of life. Without that, there's no manifestation in the guf. There's no Nefesh HaLekis without a Nefesh HaBahamis. If the body is not breathing, what's responsible for the whole system? What we call the respiratory system or the urinary system. That's the whole digestion, Beisakise. The circulatory system, digestive. There's 9 systems in the body. Each system is incredible. That's all the Nefesh HaBahamis, the Nefesh HaChiyunis. It's called the biological soul. That is all the Nefesh HaChiyunis, the Nefesh HaBahamis, Ki Nefesh HaBasa B'dami, working through the blood, which creates the system of Chiyus. That's the life. Within the Nefesh HaBahamis, you have the Nefesh HaLekis tucked in. The Nefesh HaLekis is a godly soul, a divine consciousness. What's Pshat of divine consciousness? Like it says in Tanya, it's a chelik elikam mimal mamash, a piece of Hashem. It's a piece of Hashem. That's what it is. Kavayachal, it's a derivative of the infinite consciousness of Hashem. So mitzad the Nefesh HaBahamis, the focus is survival. In that experience of trying to survive, the Nefesh HaBahamis can develop all different types of attitudes, perspectives, and midos, which allow it to survive. Since by definition, the Nefesh HaBahamis, like the Torah, it comes in Tanya, it calls it Klippas Noiga, but it's rooted in Klippa. What's Pshat it's rooted in Klippa? It doesn't instinctively experience itself as Ein Sof, as infinite. The Nefesh HaLekis is incorruptible because it's a chelik elikam ma'al mamash. You can't corrupt Hashem. You can't corrupt the Nefesh HaLekis. That's what we say in the morning. Elikai neshama shenasatabi tahirehi. There were those who said you shouldn't say tahirehi. The Chidah, for example, right? Neshama shenasatabi tahira. That's the version of the Rambam in Hilchas Tefillah, not tahirehi, because tahira means now it's pure. Chidah writes, well, what if it's not pure? Elikai neshama shenasatabi tahira. When you gave it to me, it was pure. Now it may be very dirty. But the Nusach Harizal and many other Nuschayos, I think also Svard, you daven Ashkenaz. Is it somebody daven Ashkenaz here? It says in Torah it's to be Tahir or Tahirahi? Tahirahi. Tahir means it is Tahir. It's pure. Even now it's pure. Because even if a person gets tarnished, there's a Nekuda in the Neshama that remains Ba'amna Itai, Kashahoisa Ba'amna Itai, it says in Tanya, Zechelik Elikami Mal. So it's incorruptible, it's indestructible, it remains whole, it remains pure, it remains sacred, it remains divine, because it's a chelik alakamima. Ani Hashem lo shanisi v'atem b'nei Yaakov lo chilisim, as the Navi says. I haven't changed, I haven't been destroyed, and you also won't be destroyed. It also means spiritually. There's the nekuda of the neshama, which is indestructible, chelik alakamima. The para, the nefesh habahamas, which doesn't experience itself as an animal. So its focus is survival. In this process of survival, it can develop all types of different pleasures and tanugim, but the core is, I want to be. I want to be. And because I want to be, which that's its function, that's its reason d'etre, so whatever its brain experiences as a necessary tool in order to exist, that's what it's going to develop. If this is the case, so now you have a big job to distinguish between the chaymer of the nefesh habahamas and the tzura of the nefesh habahamas. What exactly did my nefesh habahamas train itself to become in order for it to be able to feel that its chaymer is going to survive? How many stories did it tell itself? What did it adapt itself to? What did it become emotionally and socially in order to be able to survive according to its own tools? It only has its own tools, doesn't have other tools. And that's where the interaction of the two souls come. The Nefesh HaLekis could start talking to the Nefesh HaBahamas with empathy and start asking it, let's find out, what's your tzura and what's your chaymer? The Herst was tutzach. And then suddenly this para aduma becomes a source of cleansing. It's not just the para aduma is not klippa. All the worst tumah, via vaisa tumah, tumas meis, is called the most difficult tumah. Why is it the most difficult tumah? Because v'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem chayim, life is representing that which is eternal, and disconnect from life, that's the source of impurity, disconnecting from life.
Does it affect the neshama?
It affects the neshama in the sense because it's interacting with the nefesh habahamas. But at the core, the neshama remains pure. The neshama needs to cleanse itself because of its interactions.
When it comes to contact with this mess, the neshama have tsar. Is it the tsar that it can't get in contact now with kedusha because it's lavana, or it's tsar that it's tsar to allow the nefesh habahamas to do something?
Both, probably both. So now let's see weiter inside. This is the Likkutei. It's clear. So I told you, page 112, Chukas. Mamish a few lines from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Kamosh mebchinas para nimshach achakach hashpa lechitzoynim kach min amidis the nefesh habahamas nimshach acheshek v'atayva l'tanugei l'maza beheter be'isr chas v'shalom. The para, the cow, is a metaphor for the cow in the human being, for the animal soul. Just like we explained, the para starts off in kedusha. The pnei shoir is not. It's masmo. It's one of the malachim. The face of we call the malachim chayos hakodesh. Chayos hakodesh means heilige chayos, holy animals. That's not a nice name.
Yeah.
Huh?
A pet.
Chayos hakodesh. Chayos. You know when they call kids chayos? It's not chayed up. It's not chaya. Why you call the animals Chayes HaKodesh? The pshat is, you're not insulting them. Fakert, you're complimenting the animals. You're saying that all the Chayes, they're rooted in the Chayes HaKodesh. Pnei Aryeh, Pnei Shor, that's the Merkava of Yecheskel. V'ayfanim v'Chayes HaKodesh v'Raj Gadol. It's called Chayes HaKodesh. Ein Echanami. I'm just giving an example. Yeah. But it's all angels. It's all spiritual energies. Why animals? Why not people? The answer is because animals and malachim have something similar. This it says in Tanya, in Perek Lametes. Animals are very in touch with their emotions. Right? Their limbic brain, and that's what they are. Their emotions. They feel what they need based on survival, and that's the world they live in. They don't make prefrontal cortex calculations, intellectual. They don't reason about where the world came from, where it's going, what's the purpose, who I am, who I'm not. I should have been a cat, I should have been a buffalo, I should have been a rhinoceros, I should have been a hyena. That's how people think. I should have been this, I should have been that. They don't go there. All their seichel is to feed their survival. This is how I can get food, this is how I can create a relationship, etc. The malachim are spiritual emotions, they're divine emotions. So the way it comes down into the physical world, it comes down into chayes and behemoths. So it starts off with holiness, chayes HaKodesh. We're going to see it's a moedik of art. Why is it that before Krishna, Anshe Knesset HaGedolah made this whole first bracha mostly about the malachim? I mean, it's beautiful pieces, right? Hashem Risharsov Kulam Maimdim B'Ramoylam Ashmein B'Yira Divril Kim Chaim Kulam Ahuvim Kulam Brudim Kulam Gibayrim. Why do we now, Birchas Krishma, have to give compliments and tell us how beautiful the Malachim are? They're beloved, they're pure, they're strong, they're holy. Kulam Oisim B'Ema, Kulam Poischim Espiyim, B'Kedushim. It's a very, very geschmack piece about the Malachim. But that's the bracha for Krishma. The Rajba asks a question. The Rajba says every blessing that Chazal, Antrinad instituted, the blessing is about what you're going to do. Before I put on tefillin, I make a bracha. Or al mitzvahs tefillin l'ashkenazim add a second bracha. Before you put on a talis, l'sativ petzitzes. Blessed are you. You gave me a mitzvah. Or before you put on a mezuzah, l'kvaya mezuzah. Or before you separate challah, l'afrashos challah. Or l'hadlik ner Chanukah. There's one exception. Birchas Krishma. The bracha before Krishma should be what? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher Hashem gezer tzivanu l'krishma. And davening would also be much shorter. Yeah. No, we're going to they call it Birchas Krishma. A blessing for... You want to speak about Malach Gesundheit? Don't call it Birchas Krishma. That's what the Rajba asks in Masechus Brachas. It's a big kasha. So the Alter Rebbe answers, it's a moedik answer. The Alter Rebbe says, Krishma is not just a mitzvah. Krishma is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Krishma is the experience of Hashem's oneness. You need to be able to prepare for that. What's the greatest contradiction internally to Hashem's oneness? The Nefesh HaBahamas. The Nefesh HaBahamas says, I'm a behemoth. So the whole bracha about the Malachim is talking to the Nefesh HaBahamas and explaining the Nefesh HaBahamas where it comes from. You are from Chayes HaKodesh. You're from the Serafim. Let me explain to who you are. We have to get rid of the Tzura. In other words, be able to see the Chaymer that's deeper than the Tzura. You're talking to the Nefesh HaBahamas. It's not a conversation about the angels in the sky. It's a conversation about the angels inside of you. Your behemoth is not a wild, crazy monkey and beast. It's actually an angel. It's an angel that may be confused. It's an angel that went through a lot. It's an angel that's trying to survive. It's an angel that's afraid. It's an angel that's lonely. It's an angel that has pain. It's an angel that has brokenness. It's an angel that's afraid of a dark world. But it's an angel.
Robot.
Not a robot. It's not a robot. Robots, the way you create them, that's the way they die. And b'meila, you could say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. It's a Birchas Krishma. It's an introduction to the consciousness of Krishma. So for this, you have to understand the Chaymer and the Tzura. Because if you don't distinguish between the two, you just say, my Parah Aduma is evil and bad and horrible and disgusting. and grotesque, and that's it. It was one of the most famous sculptures in history is Michelangelo. He did some brilliant work. I mean, the most famous is, David, Kvayachal, King David, and others. Yeah. So they once asked him how he does it. It was brilliant. So he said, I see the angel trapped in the marble. And I chisel away on the marble and I set the angel free. You understand? So you could look at it, you see a piece of marble. This is what it is, it's a piece of marble. But he saw the angel trapped in the marble. Now you just have to remove the clippus and let the angel shine. But it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the marble because the angel is trapped. You don't even know who even sees an angel. Somebody sent me a clip a while ago. There's a fellow, he's a non-Jew, he's a drummer. He's a world-renowned drummer, like a real professional drummer. Like something special he does with his drums. He has a gift. So he was telling his story. So he said that in class, when he was a kid, he would always sit in his classroom, and he was always tapping on the desk. And it drove all the kids crazy, and his teacher crazy for good reason. He didn't stop like this. So he was always sent to the principal's office. Every day. And the principal said, you have to stop. And he tried, but he couldn't. So the principal once gave him advice and said, keep your hands under yourself. Sit on both of your hands. Just sit on both of your hands like this, and that'll be fine, right? So he said it lasted for 30 seconds. And then he was this. So usually he was expelled and detention because he was always confusing. He was always bothering everybody. And they said one year there was a new teacher came in. And of course, he couldn't contain himself and he's begging. So the teacher looks at him and says, after class, stay here. He said, okay, another one is going to start throwing me out. And everybody left, and the teacher sits down with him and he said, I know everybody thinks you have a problem, but I don't see it that way. And the teacher said, I bought you a gift. And he bought him a set of drums. He says, you're a drummer. And you're destined to be a drummer. You're not a problem case. You're a drummer. That's who you are. And he gave him his first drum set. He was a little kid. Today he's a world-renowned drummer. So what does this mean? Here you have, right? You have example. Here's an example. Chaymet Surah. I see this kid doing like this. What do I say? It's a troublemaker. Right? Hates my class. I'm now insulted. I'm a good teacher. I'm the best teacher in the world. And you can't sit there. He's busy texting on me. This is all the tsuras I give. You understand? Where did this kid grow up? I diagnose him. These are all... Don't do the chaymer. The chaymer is a machtazoi. This teacher had something in him. He had something in him. He looked at the child. Love. Not only love. He wasn't only a nice person. Yeah, obviously there was love, but he also had that ability of empathy, that ability of connection, hiskashrus. The ability to be able to tune in to the pnimius. In the pnimius, there's nothing wrong here. On the contrary, this is a special gift. He says today he's literally world-renowned, a very, very successful human being. So if not for that teacher, I would have seen myself as the loser of the school. I'm the one who makes everybody's life miserable. And it's true. They all tell it to me. They're not lying. This is so true with so many areas in life. But it begins with the person themselves. So this is the classic example. How do I teach the Nefesh HaBahamis who it really is? That's what the Bracha of Krishma is. That's how the Balatanya explains it. That's why Anshe Knesset HaGedolah did this as an introduction for Shema. Because Shema is not just putting on tefillin. It's not an action. Shema is not an action. Shema is about awareness. Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shemayim. It's all about awareness. And real awareness. And the awareness has to bring to V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha B'chol Levavcha. And the Mishnah says B'chol Levavcha is what? B'shnei Yitzarach. So that means I need my Nefesh HaBahamis. And my Nefesh HaBahamis is not part of davening. It's not V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha B'chol Levavcha. So you have to talk to your Nefesh HaBahamis. You can't just force them to love. I'm not interested. Ich bin a behema. Well, let's talk about you being a behemoth. And there's a partial. There's a behemoth. Started off with Chayis HaKodesh, Pnei Shermei HaSmal. Because it comes from smile, so ultimately, Smal Doiche, the Hashpah is such in which the presence and the intimacy of Ein Sof is not felt. So therefore, after many filters and many tzimtzumim, it can develop into something that experiences itself as self-contained. Now I need to survive. So I'll do whatever it takes to survive, and the clipper can grow and grow because I don't experience myself as part of infinity. So I invest a lot of resources in survival as outside of Ein Sof. So when the Alter Rebbe says here, all the Tanuga Elam Haza Beheter Be'isr that it develops, all the types of pleasures that it develops, it could be permissible pleasures, it could be absolutely forbidden pleasures. And the pleasures are sometimes promiscuous and destructive. What is it essentially? It's just developing pleasures that will help it survive in its own mind. A person needs connection, but I don't have that real connection. So I create alternative forms of connection, alternative forms of attachment. There's people who create a whole life where they have connections, but they're fake connections. The computer is the source of their connections, or whatever they see on that computer. It's not a real connections with people. But it's a substitute for the need for connection. V'chuli, v'chuli, v'chuli. Yeah.
Sorry.
You don't have to be sorry for asking a question.
You're about to go back then. I'm sorry for class because that was unplayed.
Maybe you're a drummer. Just joking.
I am.
You'll see. The Alter Rebbe is now going to explain. You'll see. Good. Good. Listen how he says this. Adam choshek v'chafetz ledaber meinyonei elam haza hagashmi. I'm sorry, ledover. V'ine Adam choshek v'chafetz ledover meinyonei elam haza hagashmi. When somebody has a craving to anything in this world, anything. Again, it could be things that are very nice and fine and permissible. It could be things that are forbidden. It could be things that are disgusting. It could be things that are destructive. But this is the klal. Whatever I want, I have a desire to. It could be words, could be actions, could be behaviors, habits, addictions, emotions, but things that I gravitate to. Hine oisei hadavar hu keli laharatzon v'atshuka shebelev adam. That thing you have to see as a keli. That is somehow the container for my desire. That is the target for my desire. It could be a piece of food. It could be a bag of potato chips or ice cream. It could be a person. It could be any force or phenomenon in the world. I'm looking for attention. I'm looking for honor. I'm looking for validation. I'm looking for power. Whatever it is, that thing that my desire is attached to, that becomes a keli. That is the keli. That is holding on to my desire. That is the vessel in which my desire is being expressed. No, not yet. We'll see. Just like this cup is a keli for the coffee, right? Coffee is not a cup. Coffee is a coffee bean. But the coffee finds a keli in this cup. This cup becomes the place in which the coffee is contained. So this person, let's say, or this piece of food or whatever it is, becomes the keli holding on, containing this desire, because my desire is towards that. The letters of thought or speech, thinking, how I can obtain this. How am I going to get it? How am I going to reach it? How do I do it? How do I implement it? Whether I'm talking about it or before that I'm thinking about it. Those are all kalim to this ratzon. There's a pure desire here. There's something I'm looking for. But right away, the desire doesn't remain a desire. I'm thinking about it. I'm talking about it. I'm doing things. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for him. I'm looking for her. I'm looking from this. So the machshava, the dibur, the thing I'm searching for. These are all the kalim, the containers for this ratzon. For kol shekin hamaisa. Certainly the action, not just the words, the action. Shein kulam b'chinas kelim ulevushim la'aratzon. Gam heim k'maitzura l'chaymer la'etzem haratzon. All these, the thoughts, the words, the actions, the thing, they're all kelim for this ratzon. So they can all be defined as a tzura for the chaymer. What do we mean a tzura for the chaimer? What's the chaimer? Etzem haratzon, the pure desire. Shehu al derech mashal k'may hachaimer hapashat. The pure desire would be compared to the raw material. V'heim heim hatzura liyas roitze kach v'kachuli. And they become the form of the ratzon. I want this, I want that. You understand what the Balatanya is saying? In every temptation in the world, in every desire and craving in the world, including every disappointment. When you say desire, it's positive and negative, right? I want you or I'm disappointed by you. I'm disappointed by you because I don't get my ratzon. Whatever it is, I'm hurt. There's a ratzon. You can only get hurt if you have a ratzon, right? If I want a relationship with you and you tell me, get out of my life, so that ratzon just got hurt. So he says there's two separate things. There's the chaimer and there's the tzura. What's the difference? The chaimer is the pure desire. That's the chaimer. The tzura is the form that the desire took on. The form that the desire took on. What's the form the desire took on? I want to eat this. I want to talk to this person. I want to go to this website. I want to engage in this type of activity. And all the thoughts around that, all the words around that, all the feelings around that, all the actions around that, that's the tzura which the pure desire took on. What does the pure desire look like? I don't know anymore because I'm already busy with this. I'm already busy with this. So if you tell me I'm very, very upset at you, I don't want to have a connection with you. I'm feeling a lot of pain. Why? Because you said that you don't want a connection with me. So what's the tzura of the disappointment? The tzura of disappointment is that I wanted a connection with you and you rejected me. That's the tzura. That's the shape it took on. That's the sculpture it has. So if somebody says, why are you so upset? I'm so upset because this person told me so and so. That's the tzura. What's the chaimer? The chaimer is something else. The chaimer is what's the pure desire. Was suchst du? There's what you say you want. There's what you think you want. There's what you feel you want. And then there's what you want. What's the pure desire? What are you looking for? What are you searching for? Well, I want to eat this. I know you want to eat this. That's the tzura the ratzon took on. I want to go here. I want to go there. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for validation. I want power. I want money. I want covet. I want taiva. There's a billion and one things in this world and more. So that's, you always distinguish. There's the chaimer of the ratzon and there's the ratzon. Yeah.
When we talk about ratzon, there's a ratzon of nefesh b'chami and a ratzon of...
So he's talking the nefesh b'chami. The nefesh b'chami, yeah. V'hinei, etzem haratzon, afshek sheneslabish b'tayvei ra, hu ra gomor, mikol makom ein muhus koyach hazeh chet v'ra mitzad etzem atzmusa. That's the key. That's the key. The pure ratzon, it assumed a levush. The levush is a taivera. Maybe a craving that's broken, that's grotesque, that's promiscuous, that's not good. And therefore you're going to say, oh, this is a pretty bad desire. But he says they have to distinguish. The core of the ratzon is not ra. The core of the temptation in its atzmiyus, it will never be evil. It will never be negative. The levush, you may be wreaking havoc. You may be destroying yourself. You may be destroying somebody else. This taiva could take you to crazy places. But that's the levush of the ratzon. If we go back to the skeleton. Was suchst du? What are you really, really looking for? What's bothering you? What are you searching for? If you go to the core of the desire, the core of the temptation, again, the skeleton, you remove not the keli, you remove the keli. I know I'm looking now for this, and this may be poison. And if I eat it, I'm going to die. But that's already, the poison became the tzura of what I want. Whatever that poison looks, usually doesn't look like poison. Looks like gold or sugar. But if you go to the core of the ratzon, the chaimer, the raw material, it's never going to be ra in its atzmos. The Harris Dalton Rebbe's of art. Ein muhus koyach hazeh chet v'ram mitzat etzem atzmusa. Sharei etzem muhusa hu rak koyach hamisava. Because if you go back to the core, what it is a koyach hamisava. What does a koyach hamisava mean? Literally, it's an energy that's searching for something. It's an energy that's craving for something. That's not evil. That's not disgusting. That's not repulsive. This pure energy can take you to the most beautiful and sweet and good and holy places. Just like right now, it's taking you down a path that's not going to be productive. There's a brokenness in the person that hijacked the koyach hamisava. It hijacked it and it harnessed it this way. It's like I take it down a rabbit hole and now I don't distinguish anymore between the two. This is what I want. It's not what you want. There's a ra in me that took the koyach hamisava and trapped it and harnessed it down this path. V'nasa boy hatzura rama oid v'neslabish b'levushim tsoyim. The tzura of it now may be absolutely wrong, absolutely negative, because the koyach hamisava is dressed up in levushim tsoyim. Levushim tsoyim means filthy garments. If I'm wearing filthy garments, tsoyim, garments of excrement, right? You're going to say, oh wow, you're very dirty. I'm not dirty, my suit is dirty. I'm not dirty. My suit is very dirty. No, you're dirty. You're not dirty. Your suit is dirty. You dressed up in this suit, so you look dirty. Now, with a suit, we all understand it. There may be some tsoya, some excrement on my jacket. So I take off the jacket and I give it to the cleaners. Right? And it's a geshet that happens by kaparas, yeah, or other times the chicken decides to give you a piece of its fertilizer. Fine, so you put your jacket in the cleaners. When it comes to the person, to the nefesh habahamis, it's not so simple. Because it's not just a suit. But he says it's the same nekuda. There's the levush of the ratzon, and there's the ratzon. The levush of the ratzon is what the ratzon is dressed up in. And that now becomes the tzura. But it's only the tzura. It's not the chaymer. It's never the chaymer. It's only the tzura. And because of this, so now my koyach hamisava, my desire, is drawn either to go away from a mitzvah esser, or lisavis lis, or to crave something that's absolutely prohibited. Aval mitzat koyach hamisava ba'atzmai. Hareyesh b'koyach zeh lafich levavay min hakotze lakotze liyos misave v'oyev v'chofis ledovka b'Hashem k'may shekosov nafshi ivisicha k'may she'oyev v'misave l'chaye nafsha. But if you can look at the koyach hamasava itself, if you can dissect the pure energy, it's a pure craving. Pure craving is never ever evil. And if you'll be able to separate it from what it's craving, even if it looks like the most horrible thing in the world, don't be fooled. That's the tzur, it's not the chaymer. If you can look at the koyach hamasava itself, it has the ability to be transformed from one extreme to the other extreme.
But we're talking about eyes that are bad eyes, right? So why the council perspective side was nothing the nefesh halakis that has.
We're talking the nefesh habahamis, not the nefesh halakis.
I get it, but I'm saying, but the nefesh habahamis, if it's had, we're talking about either it's the conquering the that's not conquer God by his soul and have that's really main consciousness. You want to say that the animal soul is not taking over. The nefesh halakis never wants to take over from these types of.
The nefesh halakis, yes, what's the role? The nefesh halakis's role is to be able to help the nefesh habahamis not get fooled by its own surah. It's literally like you have a little puppy that's out of control, you know? It's a scared little animal. And you say, come, let me talk to you. You're fine, you're good. The worst thing about the nefesh habahamis is that it thinks it's evil. And it has good proof. Why? Look what I want. Look what I'm interested in. I'm the laziest, most depressed, anxious, meshugana, crazy, insane, immoral, horrific, disgusting creature who ever lived. I get emails constantly. People, this is how they're titul on themselves. You know, they have titul, Kvoid Harava Gon Harava Choset Tzadik Yisod Olam Rabbi Shel Kol Bnei Hagoy Lamud Hayamin, and their title on themselves is Rabbi Jacobson. I'm going to send you now an email, and you're going to come in contact with the most wretched, horrific, immoral creature. And they start telling me their Sipur Achayim to prove it, etc. I don't want to spoil it for them and say 5 minutes ago I got an email much more exciting than you. Your imagination is far more poor than... My point is, the Nefesh HaBahamis starts telling itself for good reason. Because Taka, it's not crazy. The Alter Rebbe says the Levushim could be very, very painful, very filthy. Levushim Tzayim. And remember, the Levush here is not a physical Levush. It's not a suit that I can take off. This is who I became. This is what I want. This is what excites me. This is what disappoints me. Talk about addicts, right? They're addicted to things that are very, very not good for them. And they're doing it for years. And they're junkies. And this is their survival method. The ability to be able to know what they're looking for is really something else. No, I want this. No, you've conditioned to want this. This is your survival. I get it, but that's not the Koyach HaMesava. Koyach HaMesava is a whole different reality. The Koyach HaMesava itself, he says, can be transformed from one extreme to another extreme. And he uses here a word from Yeshaya Navi. Yeshaya says, the Navi says, Nafshi ivisicha. How does that come in here? Nafshi ivisicha. What does it mean, Nafshi ivisicha? Literally, it means my soul. Nafshi is my soul. Ivisicha, I want you. Pines for you. I pine for you. So the Zoya asks a question, Pashtin Diktuk. If you know a little Lashon Kodesh, you know that this pasuk is complicated. The grammar is off. The expression is off. Why? It should say either Ivisicha, I want you, or Nafshi Ifsach. For example, in English, you're not going to say, my soul, I want you. You just repeated yourself. I can say, my soul wants you, or I want you. My soul pines for you, or I pine for you. You don't say, my soul, I pine for you. You just repeated yourself. Nafshi ifsach, or ivisich. Ivisich means, I want you. I already want you. So I say, nafshi ivisich. So the Alter Rebbe teaches here, he's saying something else. He's talking to Hashem. He's saying, because you are nafshi, therefore ivisicha. Because you are my soul, therefore I want you. It's not my soul, I want you. It's an explanation. A person loves their own life. A person loves their soul. A nefesh. When somebody is exhausted, you didn't sleep for 2 nights, all you want is a bed to be able to get some sleep. You haven't eaten in a few days, you haven't had a drink of water, all you want is, give me a cup of water, you want chayim, you want life. People will go through very painful procedures just to get more life. You don't have to explain to somebody, right, the ava techayim nafsha. So he says, the moment you realize that Ein Sof, that is your life, so nafshi, the moment I realize you're my soul, ivisich, I want you. Avos Hashem, love of God, is not loving some creature in heaven. It means loving your real self, loving your life. You don't have to it's not a hard sell. Avos Hashem is not a hard sell. I don't have to sell you to have breakfast, to eat dinner. You didn't eat a whole day. I don't have to convince you and schlep you and say it's a mitzvah. Now you should love the piece of steak. I never saw somebody who didn't eat a whole day. They come down in front of their meal. They sit in front of the bed. I'm not interested. You know what? I'll meditate. Because I want to live, and in order to live, there's food, and in order to have food, somebody made it, and it's on the plate, and if I have to put the fork into the food, unless somebody's nebuch very, very emotionally, ill or this, you don't need his baininess. Why? Because it's clear, I'm starving, of course I want the food. So the moment you realize nafshi, what's nafshi? The source of the food itself is shahakal niya b'dvarim. It's all divine energy. Nafshi, because you're my soul, therefore yivisicha. How does that come into? That's the koyach hamasava. You're not looking for the alcohol. You think you're looking for alcohol? Well, how's alcohol going to help you? You think you're looking for these immodest websites? You think you're looking for these fake relationships? You think you're even looking for validation? Those are all substitutes because you don't know what your soul is. This became my survival method. I'm looking for my soul. A person is looking to live. The Nefesh HaBahamis is not crazy. Every animal wants to live. An ant wants to live. A mosquito wants to live. You know how hard they work to live? You ever see? They'll do anything to live. Your Nefesh HaBahamis also wants to live. This became Nebuchad's life. So you think you're evil. It's not evil. Go to the Koyach HaMesava and you'll see the Koyach HaMesava can be transformed from one extreme to another extreme to love the most beautiful things in the world. But for this, you have to be able to distinguish between Chaimer and Surah. Your Teufels without the Rebbe saying. So go to any temptation in the world. At the core of the temptation, you're not going to find any evil. You're not going to find any negativity. This is a guarantee. The levushim, you may find a lot of not good stuff. That's the levush. That's the tzura the chaimer took on. Yeah. No, the nefesh elikiz doesn't dress up in levushim tzayim. The nefesh elikiz doesn't have this issue. The nefesh elikiz, the tzura is also elikus. We're talking all the animal consciousness. The animal consciousness came down after tzimtzumah.
Is that separate? Is that separate from?
Really, it's not separate, but in its own consciousness, it's separate. Nothing is separate, but we're talking about in its own consciousness.
It's able to come from the source.
Yeah. And Al Rebbe adds something. He says, "Ki be'emes," even deeper. It's not just the Koyach HaMesava is neutral and it can go both ways. Ki be'emes Koyach HaMesava shebenefesh HaBahamis mitzad atzmoi shorshoi v'yisoidosoi b'kedusha el yoyna mebchinas pnei shor shebemerkava. You could cry from these words. Because really the Koyach HaMesava of the animal soul on its own, in other words, if you'll strip it from everything it got attached to, if you'll look at it at its own, you will find that it's rooted and its foundation is in absolute holiness. Why? Because where does the Nefesh HaBahamis come from? The Pnei Shor. We're back to the Parah Aduma. The Pnei Shor, the face of the ox in the Merkava. What's the Merkava? The Merkava is divine energy. Divine angels. Chayis HaKodesh. Behemoth HaKodesh. That's where the behemoths come from. That's where the Nefesh HaBahamis comes.
We're talking about here about vanity.
We're talking about every person. Every person.
Tzaddik never has for
The reason that Tzaddik transforms his Nefesh HaBahamis is because he works through this whole process.
Is that it? Notice he does have sometimes he does.
Avada.
Originally had titles for
Avada. In the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains that a Tzaddik transforms his animal soul. How? It's not magic. Because he never allows his animal soul to deceive him that it's really detached. So it becomes a full ally of the divine soul to the point that they become partners and they become one. It's already there's no dissonance between them. The animal soul is just a conduit for the divine soul. It's one. The animal soul does what the godly soul can't do. It helps me breathe. It helps me go to the bathroom. It helps me eat. It helps me manage the temperature of my body. Nefesh HaChiyunis and Bahamas works together. Nefesh HaBahamis is the limbic and Nefesh HaChiyunis is the reptilian. It's the same Nekuda, yeah. Nefesh HaBahamis is the emotions. Nefesh HaChiyunis is the biology of it. They work together. The Nefesh HaLekis is divinity in a person, the Elikus in a person. That gives this perspective. The Nefesh HaLekis can't be corrupted. So the Nefesh HaLekis always has a clear vantage point of who you are, who you're not, what's going to work, what's not going to work. Now you'll say, I'm not interested in this. This is what I want. So he's saying it's not what you want. Why doesn't addiction work? Why does it always disappoint everybody? Because it's not what you want. Huh? He's doing it. I know that. And for the moment it feels good. But why tomorrow do I need more? If it felt so good, so tomorrow the same thing. The answer is because it's not what I ever wanted. In my desperation, it's going to give me a little bit of a good feeling. But because afterwards I see that I'm still not happy, so tomorrow I need more. because I'm even more in pain, because I thought this is going to give me my Gan Eden, and suddenly, I finally got it. There's no Gan Eden. So now I feel worse about myself. What I already thought, I thought I'm going to get this, I'm going to be a happy man. I got it, I'm not. So now I'm more miserable. Because already after Gan Eden, I'm still in Gehenna. So now I need a bigger Gehenna. Why does it never work? It never works because it never works. Even when it works, it doesn't work. You know why? Because it's satisfying. Huh? It's not satisfying what I'm really looking for. It's not helping it. It's Pashut not helping it. And that's the klal. You always have to ask yourself, whatever you're pursuing right now, is it satisfying what you're really looking for? Or is it a cover-up for what you're looking for? It's taking the chaymer for what you're looking for. It's giving it a certain surah because it looks good. It's going to look good. It's giving it a form. This is what you're looking for. This is not a table. This is a piece of wood. It assumes the form of a table. Now, when I look at it, I don't see a tree. I see a piece of wood. When you look at addiction, you don't see a koyach ha'mesav of kedusha. You see, this one sees gambling, this one sees nus, this one sees money, this one sees whatever it is. And it's not just addiction, by the way. This is any taiva in the world. Kinna, taiva, covet. I be looking for attention. A person is looking for attention. A person is confronted. This is any nakuda. We're not talking here addiction. Addiction, right away, people think, oh, I'm not an addict. I'm very healthy. This shir is for people who are addicts. I'm not an addict. I'm a very healthy guy. I wake up early. I go to the minyan. I do daf yomi. I go to work. I come home.
Denial.
Huh?
Denial.
No, because when you start giving titles, the Alter Rebbe doesn't use the word addiction here. This is the condition of life, every person. I may be triggered by my spouse. I may be triggered by my children. I'm not an addict. I may be looking for validation wherever I can get it. I'm not an addict. I do it very nice ways. I support moisdas. They put in whatever it is. Right? This one does it this way, but I'm looking for validation. What am I looking for? You're not looking for validation. You never learned how to get love. It's not your fault. So now this becomes a substitute. This becomes the tzura. So of course I'm looking for it, but I'm not really looking for it. And that's why I'm always going to need more. It's like a bottomless pit. Right? You're pouring in water here, or coffee, or mashke, whatever it is. The problem is there's a hole. So segeta rice. So how do you fill it? No alcohol in the world, no beverage is going to fill it. You know why there's a hole? You know what you have to do? You have to plug the hole. The problem is when you plug the hole, you don't need anything anymore. Yeah.
This seems like never-ending journey because Nefesh Bahami.
That's right.
Because Nefesh Bahami needs physical pleasures, and it really needs the kedusha.
Very needy.
It's ongoing.
Of course, there's levels and levels and levels. But this journey is the most authentic journey in the world. It's every day, wherever I am. This is not about perfect or imperfect. You do it or you don't do it. Every moment, whenever I have a desire, or whenever I'm disappointed by something, I always have to ask this question. What I'm looking for. Is it something that's going to bring me to what I really am looking for? Do I know my koyach ha'mesava? Is it bringing me closer to that? Or is it actually taking me away from that? That's the question.
It's not possible to satisfy the Nefesh Bahami.
The Nefesh Bahamas will ultimately never be satisfied with the Levushim Atzoyim because it's not what the Koyach HaMesava is. You have to know what the Koyach HaMesava is. Momentarily, you'll be very geschmack. I eat this piece of food and for 20 minutes I'm happy. But now I need something else. I'm still empty.
Even then you're not.
For a few minutes. Then I have to go to the bathroom, then I'm in a bad mood, then I'm depressed. What did I just do? I didn't just do something wrong to my Nefesh Elokis. I did something wrong to my Nefesh Bahamas. I wasn't listening to it. I was listening to its chitzonius, not to its pneumius.
If I follow the Nefesh Elokis, the Nefesh Bahamas will also be happy?
Of course. When you follow your Nefesh Elokis, the Nefesh Bahamas will always be happy. There may be stages in its happiness. Sometimes, it's like the worst thing you can do for a dog. You know how a dog runs ahead of a master? What's the worst thing you could do to the dog? Here, go ahead and I'm going away. You run away from the dog and the poor dog is lost. The dog always looks back. That's like the Nefesh Habahamis and the Nefesh Elikis. The worst thing you can do to the Nefesh Habahamis is detach it from the Nefesh Elikis. Never. It always looks back. It wants the master. Now sometimes the dog jumps together with the master. Sometimes the dog is struggling a little bit. The Nefesh Habahamis says, no, I don't want to come with you. So that's different stages where how in touch I am with my koyach hamesava. Meaning, if I'm heavy into a taiva, it's going to be hard for my dog to go away from it. But ultimately, it's going to thank me. You know, sometimes somebody forces you to do something, and then you thank them. Why? You had resistance because you didn't realize. I was frightened. You know, sometimes something is very scary. You have to take an ice plunge. You know, ice plunges. People who take ice baths in the morning. It's very good for the body. It's very scary to do it, but then you do it, and you thank them. Why do you thank them? Because it feels amazing. So my Nefesh Habahamis may not always be in a state where I'm going to be running after my Nefesh Elikis, but tomorrow I'll be thankful. But if it's the other way around, if I detach it from the Nefesh Elikis, then the Nefesh Elikis is miserable, and the Nefesh Habahamis is miserable. A puppy doesn't want to be alone in the world. A puppy wants a master. I want to be close to my master. I want to be close to the one who takes care of me.
We say Patzal Kotza. That means that eventually you'll get to the hill.
Again, there's so many stages in this, and there's different levels, but the Nekuda applies to every person wherever they are.
But what I'm saying is that like the Svarim say that a person only for one Shlava, they don't just jump from being a Holiness to being a Hatorah. It's a lifetime of work. So in other words, when a person sees the depths of his fall, he gets a glimpse of the depths of his rise. It's not going to happen right away.
Yeah, you're right. And you also have to realize that the Nefesh Habahamis is real. In other words, if this is what I want, this is what I want. I can't deny that. I have to work with that. Now, the Rebbe is not saying you're going to learn this Maimon, something you're not going to have any Levushim Tzayim anymore. No. This is what my animal soul does. I have to be aware of it. I have to have understanding of it. I have to have empathy. This is what my animal is. This is where it goes. But the Chiddush here is not just a feeling. It's all the thoughts around it, all the words around it, all of that. Let's say your child says something to you, or your child does something, or you see your child, and your child is triggering you in a very, very negative way. Somebody says, what just happened? So I don't know, but this person is getting to me. So you're thinking negative thoughts. You may be saying negative words. The Rebbe says, that's not what's going on. All your negative thoughts about this person is not what's going on. That's the levush that your disappointment took on. That's the tzura. Let's go back to the chaymer. What's really disturbing, and you'll usually see it's a whole different parsha. It's a ganze different inyan. Now, the person themselves may not always be able to do this. I may not know. I may be in the dark. Why? Because the koyach hamesava is very, very buried. It's buried. It may be buried under my conscious. But a person can at least know that they don't know. A person can at least be humble and aware that what I'm saying, I'm feeling, and what I'm saying I want, and what I'm saying I'm disappointed about, is only the outer tzura of what's really going on. What you're triggering inside of me is maybe a very, very deep feeling of pain, that I'm disconnected from you. It's a whole different thing. In other words, I really want to be close to you. And these words represent a very deep loneliness. Right? So it comes out as anger or hate or you're a horrible person or you're a meshuggah, whatever it is. It's all the tzura, it's not the chayma. And he says when you go back to the core, you'll see it's not ra. It's never ra. The koyach hamesava is not ra. You say, well, why not? I'll say, that's the truth.
Even though it's called Yetzer Hara.
Yetzer Hara is because Yetzer from the word tzura. The tzura is ra. Yetzer Hara. Yetzer from the word tzura. It takes on a tzura of ra. The chaymer is never ra. There's no such a thing. Chaymer is ra. These words in the Maimed Alter Rebbe is healing the world. He's bringing refuah to the world. This is the healing of the world. The moment you realize you're not looking for ra, you thought you were looking for ra. He's not delegitimizing that a Yetzer Hara can be very ugly. This Maimed is not a naive Maimed. Oh, everybody's good, everything is beautiful. It's not what he's saying. Not saying everything is beautiful and everything is holy. This is not an agenda of whitewashing everything and turning everything into holiness. It's not what he's saying. But he's giving here the mechanism of healing, of transformation. Yeah. You're right. Sometimes the tzura, I'm looking to do something good. Really what's underlying that is, I'm horrible, I'm inadequate, and I need this to justify me and give me validation. And it's extremely important to be able to distinguish there too. Now, right, okay, so here we have the famous halacha, that to do things, if you're doing something good, you should do it even shaloi l'shma. Shemitach shaloi l'shma ba l'shma. Right? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Lo'ilam Yaseh Kadam B'Torah mitzvah afilu shaloi l'shma shemitach shaloi l'shma ba l'shma. The Gemara says, and it's brought in halacha. In other words, like the story, somebody came to the Alter Rebbe and he told the Alter Rebbe that he gives a lot of tzedakah, but he does it only with wrong intentions. He's simply looking for the cover that he gets. That's what he told the Alter Rebbe. It's not emes. It's not sincere. He's not interested in helping the people. He's just interested in the credit that he's going to get. Like the Gemara gives an example, somebody who learns a whole day, Al Manaschi Kru'uni Rabbi. I want to become a Rebbe. How am I going to be a Rebbe? I guess in those days you had to know how to learn to be a Rebbe.
Just play the part.
Huh?
Or just play the part.
They say a joke, a story, I don't know. There was once up with somebody who considered himself a big Rebbe, and he would never say anything by the tish. By the tish, he never said a word. After 6 months, he asked the Gabbai, what are people saying about me? So the Gabbai said that 50% of the Olam is saying that you're an Amaretz. You Pasha don't know a thing because you don't say a word. So maybe next Shabbos you should say something. So he says, but the other 50%, what do they think? They still think you're a gon. They just say you don't say because of modesty. So he says, so then maybe it's good that I shouldn't say anything next Shabbos. So at least the second 50% shouldn't know that I'm Amaretz. But the point is, what's Ferah Menashri Kruni Rebbe? I want to be called a Rebbe. What does that do for me? I guess it gives me a validation. I'll become a gadol, and people will give me honor. And when I come into a chasana, everybody will jump up, and the chasana is going to be honored to dance with me. And there's a yid I know. He told me that he was once at a big levaya in Yerushalayim. There were a few 100,000 people. It was somebody very great passed away. He was a kid, so he said, a yid came over to him and said, Ingale, du wirst lernen git, wirst du euch haben als a levaya. If you learn well, you're also going to have such a funeral. You know who? Dudi Farkash. He's the one they told it to. So he went into life insurance.
Very well.
Huh?
You doing well?
Yeah. Baruch Hashem. But you get the point. So Manashri Kruni Rebbe, listen, if I go back to the Koyach HaMesava, deep down, deep down, my Nefesh Abamas doesn't have to be called Rebbe. It doesn't do anything for me. Deep down. But it becomes conditioned to that. This becomes my oxygen. People need covet. People need validation. It gives them a tremendous amount. They don't know who they are. But L'Poyel, if I'm doing a good thing, you don't have to stop it. So back to the story. This person tells the Alter Rebbe that all the tzedakah he gives is insincere. It's not emes. So the Alter Rebbe, they say, went into a dveikus. He thought for a few moments. And he's to speak with a niggin. And he said, aber de Breut was the kinder essen is emes. The bread that the children are eating, das is emes. Taka, you do it with egotistical motives and you want to cover, then you need to work on you. He's not saying you shouldn't work on himself. He's not saying that. But just, I'm not going to give tzedakah anymore, so what's going to happen? So these kids will starve. The bread is real. So that's also important to remember. The bread is real. I do a favor to somebody. Maybe I do it because of X, Y, Z. And I have to work on myself. But you have to ask, what came out of what I did? If I would have sat home on my couch and made a cheshbon nefesh and be introspective and learned the Maimah 100 times, and at the end of the day, these kids remain starving. So, grace and gedula. So that's also an important angle. But here he's talking about the other way. When the tzura is nishtazay, ay. Sometimes it's beheta, sometimes it's be'issur. So this becomes very, very important. Now, I can't always get into this because this is a very deep analysis and observation. Sometimes I just want something and I'm drunk. I'm drunk. And when you're drunk, you just have to stop drinking. I can't sit and say, yeah, but this is the Koyach HaMesava, because the Taiva is not going to listen to this mimer. You understand? The Taiva never learned this mimer. Just do it, you'll feel good. So that's when you sometimes have to just say, no. Because you know that it's bad. And you have to be very strong, and it's not easy. But the real Nakuda is you're going to see 5 hours later, it's going to thank you. The Brahmins will say, thank you. Thank you for giving me attention. Thank you for noticing me. Thank you for not getting duped by the tzura, not getting deceived by the tzura, and having the courage and the serenity to be able to see through the masks. Basically, it's like a mask. You remember the Corona days? What's the mask? I'm looking at you. I think I'm seeing you. I am seeing you, but only the mask. I don't see you. So every taiva, you have to say, what's the mask of the taiva? And can we unmask it? And if you unmask it, you'll usually see other things. And you could look, this is down the line. This is, the Alter Rebbe was a posek. So when he says that when you go to the Koyach HaMesava, it will not be Ra, it's a psak din from the Alter Rebbe, you could trust him. You will not find Ra over there. Anybody who worked on themselves on this level knows when you break down all the taivas and you come to the core, it's never Ra. Everybody knows that. Suddenly there's no Ra. Usually you see an innocent person who was hurt very badly, and this became their survival mechanism. And it's horrible. It's very sad. But suddenly there's no Ra. It could become Ra. Yetzer leva adam ra min urav. My little puppy, right? If my little puppy is in an environment where it's not getting what it needs, it will become a very, very aggressive dog. And sometimes those dogs could be dangerous. Nobody's saying the dog can't be dangerous, and the Yetzer hara can become a big monster. But when the Yetzer hara becomes a big monster, and I want to heal, I have to be able to say, where did this monster grow? This monster grew somewhere. So if you go back, and you go to the skeleton, you go to the Koyach HaMesava, you're not gonna find Ra.
What's the ego?
What's the ego?
No, ego.
You want everything in one day. Oh, the ego. Oh, I thought you were asking, what's the ego? But you asked a good question about the ego. I just didn't hear the right question. The eagle. The eagle is the nefesh hasichlis. The pnei shayr is the source of nefesh habahamas, and pnei nesher is the source of nefesh hasichlis. Because what's the difference between a bird and an animal and a mammal? A mammal can't fly. A mammal is earthbound. It's a terrestrial creature.
Doesn't look up.
Doesn't even look up. There's an expression from one of the Rebbes, a behema hat keinmal nicht gesehen the Himmel. A behema never saw the heavens. Huh? We're not talking about a monkey yet.
The lions are crazy animals.
Even the lions, I don't know that they look up to heaven. I don't know. I don't remember. From Pnei Aryeh Gedenknish. Huh? It says the Baal Shem Tov once when he was davening Friday night outside, so there were a bunch of goats, and they all they stood up on their on their hind legs like this. So I saw one of the Chassidish Sfarim, he says that Shabbos is Aliyah Ha'olamus. The Baal Shem Tov experienced that. So even the goats, their chiyus went up, and they stood up. So a bird has a duality. A bird could walk on the ground, but a bird can fly. So it says in Chassidus that the nefesh, a mammal represents the nefesh Bahamas, and a bird represents the nefesh HaSichlis, because seichel has a duality. On one hand, your mind can be very earthbound. It can just justify everything in the world, and sometimes even the worst crimes. But seichel also has the ability to fly. Seichel has the ability to say, maybe earth, maybe there's more than earth, maybe there's more to earth, maybe earth comes from somewhere. What does heaven look like? That's the power of nefesh HaSichlis. And fish represent the nefesh HaLikis. So you have mammals, you have birds, and you have fish. Mammals represent the nefesh Bahamas, birds represent the nefesh HaSichlis, the rational soul, and fish represent the nefesh HaLikis. Fish are always inside the water. You take them out of water, they're dead. They're always in the source of life. The nefesh HaLikis, there's never separation. Like Rabbi Akiva said, we have to be like fish in the water. Right? The nefesh HaLikis is a chelek elokam imal. You separate it from Ein Sof, there's no oxygen. It's like taking a fish out of water, it's dead. The nefesh Bahamas is not in the source of life. It could be separate. A bird too. The seichel is not chelek elokam imal, but seichel has that freedom. It can go very high, it can go very low. Seichel can bring a person to very, very lofty places. Like the seichel of Torah, seichel of Chassidus. On the other hand, seichel, we all know, I could use my mind to justify cruelty, immorality, or stupidity.
That's true.
Yeah. But fish are always in the source. That's why, fish doesn't need shchita. You take it out of the water, you can eat it right away. You don't have to go through a process of making it edible for a Jew. A bird needs shchita, like a chicken or another kosher bird, but only one siman. Only the food pipe or the windpipe. And a behemoth needs shchita, but two samanim. So Chassidus explains it's because that's how you... The nefesh HaLikis doesn't need bidur. You don't have to work with it. You take it out of the water, it's ready for kosher consumption.
If it's kosher.
Of course, if it's kosher, yeah. It says, Im ya'asif lehem. So Gemara says in Chulin, that dog and tzrichem asifa, not shchita. You have to take them, not shechta. So practically, once you take out the dog, it's dead. You don't have to shecht it. But halachically, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to shecht it in the water. Mashake in a bird, nefesh HaSichlis, and a mammal, nefesh Bahamas, this already needs ein v'shachat elo umashach. The Gemara says in Chulin Daf Lamed, shchita means to draw. Ein v'shachat elo umashach. You're being moishachet. You have to transform it, elevate it. So a bird needs less. It needs one siman. And a mammal needs two siman. There's nefesh HaSichlis, nefesh Bahamas. But the point in all of them is that essentially the nefesh Bahamas, the koyach HaMis'ava, is never da. The Yetzer Hara becomes the tzura of the chaymer.
Not shlo l'shma, but Torah l'kanter.
That, yeah. Tosfos brings that if somebody is learning Torah l'kanter, in other words, if you're learning Torah just to smite other people, to destroy other people, to put them down, then it says better noyach lo if you wouldn't have done it. Then it's not just because I want to be a Rebbe, or I want covered, or I want attention, or I want Olam Haba. Then it's using it for negativity. That's a whole different inyan. That's like Megala Panim B'Torah Shaloi Ka'alacha. I use the Torah and the mitzvahs themselves for a negative purpose, not just because I want credit. Then it's already fine. Shaloi Lishma. Okay, we'll take a break here. Everybody have a wonderful day.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate. This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.